How you doing? So the purpose of this video is to show you how to run a team in the PopularFreedom Rugby Union. I'm going to be going through the website, going through certain things in relation to the simulators, some of them that I've used in the past. Currently I'm using Rugby Challenge 3, but I've also used Rugby Challenge 2 and Rugby Challenge itself. Let's check out my website. Again, this used to be online. Right now I only have myself and two other friends who are running teams, so I'm not putting it online and paying the cost of that for now. Eventually, if I get more people involved, I might, although I figure I'll probably just use this route, posting information on YouTube. First thing you do is when you log in to the website, you're going to have the information of what's happened in the prior week. If that's the off season, you'll see the trades that have gone through. You may also see the occasional match during the off season, which is rarely done. It's more just in the sense where, hey, there was a trade that happened. Let's see how this player plays. And again, during the preseason, there is trading allowed. But for the most part, the off season is where trading happens. And then the preseason is just figuring out who to put in your lineup, as well as possible strategies, which we will show later. Let's say we're in the middle of a season. No trades can be made because the rosters are locked. However, you can change your starters and your bench and your reserves from week to week. We'll go through exactly what that is later on. You can see the scores from your matches. In the event that two bots played, it might just be simmed, or it might be played. Just really depends on time. You will also see the standings from that week. So far the West games and the Central games have been played in week 1, which is why those are the only ones listed. At the end of the week and all the games, it'll all be posted, sort of thing. So normally I wouldn't do this where you only see in the 2041 season, for instance, 6 games being played, because there's usually 9 games per week. But again, I'm just showing this sort of midway through the week in terms of how many games have been played. Let's go to some of the other pages on this website. This is the statistics from the previous championship years. Please realize anything prior to, and again, you'll have to forgive me, I can't remember if it was 2004, 2005, or 2006 when I actually started this. But anything prior to that is all just storyline. Now, the actual matches were simmed using random.org, as well as an Excel macro, a number of macro programs on Excel prior to that, and just sort of entered in. Okay, so it wasn't just I just wrote down a team name. It was sort of simmed prior to that, just to create some sort of storyline. In terms of teams that are defunct and whether they're coming back, this one's not, because there's a storyline behind this. This one eventually might. I haven't decided that yet. There's a storyline behind them. And this one I really want to come back, but because that name was used in Rugby Challenge 1, and it was allowed, but in Rugby Challenge 2 and 3, it's not allowed, because partway through you'll see the word rat, which for whatever reason Rugby Challenge 3 bans. So I have a city name, Myprate, M-I-P-R-A-T-E. I can't use that, which is why they're coming back as the team name Hill. If I'm able to do a workaround, this team might come back. And again, you might say, well, who cares? Well, there's a reason, again, in terms of a storyline behind that. But that's the statistics. Cities, this gives you information about the teams that are currently playing in green for each city, the teams that used to play in red and are no longer, as well as teams that are planning on going to join the league in a future season. And again, that would right now at this point only be the Peace Warriors. In terms of history, there's an extensive history. As I said, anything prior to 2004 to 2006, somewhere there, is all made up with simulations. And so this scandal where one of the teams was taken out, again, that was just something to add some color, and it's total complete fiction. Now, in terms of this event, I was actually running a rugby simulation and a soccer simulation at the same time. The rugby simulation at its peak had 15, I believe, or about 15 users, while the soccer one had over 150. So I spent more times on that, and I really just sort of left this alone. I still ran it, I still simmed it, but because I wasn't running it as much as I was the soccer one, people started losing interest, weren't playing. I lost interest. I actually wasn't really using this for about 5 to 10 real life years. And then come the 2036 season, two of my friends, hey, this is cool, what is it? I explained it, hey, they want to run teams in it, and so all three of us are running teams, and if anybody else is interested, they're welcome to join. These are the current teams in it right now. These are former teams, again, with teams in black. They are done, never coming back. Past Grand Championships, again, right now, occasionally you'll hear me use the term dynasty. That's any team that's won 2 seasons in a row, because no team has been able to do that for longer than that. If you're familiar with how FIFA does their rankings, you might be sitting there going, well, hold on a second. Didn't you say prior to 2004, 2006, you simmed it? Yes, but teams were given points based on how they did the next season, and so you're more likely to win the previous season because of that, because you have another extensive history. And there's a whole formula in relation to that, which I might have kicking around on an old hard drive of a former computer, but I don't have that information at hand anymore, and unless I come across it by accident, I'm probably not going to have it on file, ever. Right now, we're in a sort of season where Lanita is doing really well. As I've noted before, maybe not on YouTube, but I have noted to others who have been interested in playing, this is sort of a bot team that's been OP'd, overpowered, just so that in case one person runs a team very well and the others don't, they will have at least some competition. Now, it wasn't always an OP team, and it wasn't always a bot team. Somebody ran this team really well, and somebody ran this team really well, among other teams in previous seasons, which is why that team has won a number of championships. Rankings. This past season was really interesting because this team in particular was rated to be one of the top teams in their division, didn't even make the playoffs. And so the question was asked, why? Is that just random luck? Just to understand how the simulator works, especially when using Rugby Challenge 3 for the first season. And so kind of did a how high is their starting 15, how high is their bench, and of course looking at the bench, kind of get an idea, okay, this actually makes sense. It's not just random. If they had a lot of injuries, which this season there were a lot of injuries, a lot of key injuries, this could be the reason why, because their bench drops to a 67.5, while some of their rivals, again, 75.375, 72.875, and even this team, they didn't really have as much of a drop-off. And again, they beat them, not by that much, but they were 4th and they were 5th in their division. So I'm going to be keeping up with the rankings, probably not in as much detail with this, but I will have a model that I used in the soccer simulation that was really good for sort of seeing, okay, how is my team stacking up against the competition overall. These are the rules. These rules have changed for the 2041 season. They probably will not be changed for quite some time until we get enough teams in the league to divide it into 4 divisions. Right now we have 3 divisions. As you can see here, there are plans on bringing Peace into the Eastern Division, and then Brunstone as well as Therese are probably going to be given expansion franchises, they'll go into the Central with Stanislav because of their location, moving to the West. And then from there, probably have more expansion. Eventually, I want to have 4 divisions with 8 teams per division. Whether I have enough people to run that or not, that's sort of the goal. So yeah. Last page is the training. On some pages, you will see something about team training that no longer exists. In previous seasons, prior to 2036, which is really when I started this up again, 2035 was in real life about 5 to 10 years earlier. There was other types of training, which is why you'll see Lock Harbor North and Lanita with players that are really a lot better than some of the current players that are on teams or that are getting drafted. But there are still ways of making your player into a superstar within a few seasons, power training being one way. Again, will it get you up to the level of the players I'm talking about? Not sure. We'll see. Oh, and by the way, in case you're wondering how the 3 of us picked our teams, just rolled dice, really. Okay, and it was sort of heads, tails, that sort of thing until you got a team. One of my friends, he got the Lock Harbor North Dragons, which is a really strong team, was run really well by somebody in previous years. Somebody else got Rocky Edge Tigers, which is an expansion team, and I actually ran the Union Saracens, who actually won the year I got them, and then, as you can see here, I don't know, like half their starters retired. So I basically took over a veteran team, and after the season of me winning, had to rebuild them from scratch. And so they're doing pretty good, but that's because I've really managed them. And again, you probably don't care about that. So let's look at previous seasons. Again, previous seasons, I have all the scores. You can see all the standings. There are YouTube videos in the 2040 season, which show you, and again, you can click on that, which will show you, as well as you can see it on my YouTube page, sort of the recaps of each of those matches. I did that for a number of weeks, and then I found, like 10 people were watching it, so I just said, screw it, because it took a lot of time. Again, if it gets popular again, I'll run them, else I won't. So again, you see the 2039 season, and it just provides you with information so you know how your team has done, how they fared. So it gives you a plethora of information. You're able to see when teams have come back in the league because, again, back in 2036, I think I had 6 or 8 teams. I can't even remember. I think it was 8 teams running. Yeah, 8 teams. Here we go. And the reason for that was because we were just starting off again, okay? And so did a storyline on that. You'll see it says 2035, and that's all the previous seasons. I do have the match information for all the games from 2004, 5, or 6. I just got to dig it all up, or in certain cases recalculate it because I have the standings, but I may not have individual games, and so I have to recalculate that based on other pieces of information I have in other hard drives. So that will eventually get posted sooner or later, probably later. But anyways, let's look at the team, shall we? Athens Invaders, again, anytime I come up with a new idea with the other 2, what we've decided is to use that as a test case. And so we were trying one thing with this team, which we're not going forward with the other teams with for this season, which is why you're going to see all their players have changed. Again, red is what their current skill is this season, and the white is what their skill is going to be next season. So Cowan, for instance, this season he's 79. He's going to move up. That's what the arrow or crappy arrow is there. He's going to move up to a level 80. He's a prop, and he's age 27. This is how much money you have. Team info is just this information here. You can go to previous rosters. Now, you'll notice that you can click on players in previous rosters, but the problem with this is if you look at the color, that's from Rugby Challenge 2. When transferring the information and the players to Rugby Challenge 3, which has a lot more advantages than using Rugby Challenge 2, it would have taken a long time to sort of, okay, this guy's fitness is at 85, this guy's speed's at 50. So what we agreed to do was just look at the overall skill. Okay, he's 76. Make sure he's 76 in Rugby Challenge 3. But again, his speed might be 55, his fitness might be 80 or something else. And so this old information is no longer, but again, might give you an idea of what the player might be close to or similar to, although not necessarily. So I've left that on there, but just realize that this is what the information now looks like. You'll see the green, which is Rugby Challenge 3. Why they chose this color, I don't know. Again, if I can get into the program, I'm going to try to change the default color, among other things. But again, this is what the information will be for each player. How I'm updating that is I'm going to update one player per team, and then I'm going to update another player per team, so on and so forth. Basically going in alphabetical order unless there's a specific reason why I would want a certain player. So for instance, I was figuring for Asado, this is one of their best players, and so I figured I'd put him instead. As you can see with Athens, they've started on their second player, but all the other teams only have one player. So anyways, this is Athens. Their situation, they're rebuilding. They got rid of a lot of their old players, and so they have cash. They've actually already been updated for the next season, while I don't think any other team has. Let's go to Camelot. No. So this is Camelot. This is their player I've updated for this season. They are kind of run as they're in the midst of rebuilding. Again, for each bot, we sort of agree on what's their best scenario. We just sort of talk about it. If you're running this team, what would you think? Do you think there's a chance of you winning based on who your competition is and what your current situation is in terms of the player's age and the player's skills and the money you have? And so, again, this is another team that's really looking to rebuild based on our planning. But again, if you decide to take it over, you can run it however you want. This is an expansion team. Not really much to talk about them, although based on ratings, they were probably going to make the playoffs because, again, three of the teams in this division are expansion-based teams, and one of them might as well be. Let's go to the next page. Next page is Asado. They have a money problem. Somebody actually ran this team a number of seasons ago, I think. They came in the 2036 season, and somebody else was planning on running them. Didn't do the best of jobs, and they kind of sat there, and now they're not doing so well. And if the person's listening, I'm just being honest, I'm pretty sure they would agree, because they sort of did a few things and were planning something else and then just said, meh. They had something that came up that they weren't planning on, and so but yeah, they're free to take over if you want. I wouldn't take them, but unless you really want to challenge. The Hill Wolves, again, if they're still a bot team, when I figure out how to change the team name, I'm probably going to change them back to MyPrate, because that's the city name. But I don't even know if I'll do that. They're expansion-based team anyways, or re-established team, I guess, probably would be better, because they used to be in the league and then they folded and now they're back. Laurier, again, new team. I decided not to go with the Falcons, just because, again, I haven't gotten into the program yet, and finding a good logo for the Falcons on Rugby Challenge 3 was next to impossible. So, yeah, I use the Orcas because there's an icon for the plain and simple. This is the OP Power team. Again, they're getting a little bit old, but they have some money. So it's going to be interesting once their players start retiring. And as you can see, this guy's really old. This guy's not so old. One of the other things we didn't take into account ages when we changed the players over from Rugby Challenge 2 to Rugby Challenge 3. Probably should have, but we didn't notice that until after, and by the time we did, we were like, do we really want to change this? No. And so it explains how you get a player like this at that age, probably. I'm not saying you can't get that with the current system, because we put in power training so that if you really wanted to get a player like that, you could. Although I don't even know if you can get that much. Anyways, I was gonna make this video 20 minutes, and I'm almost at 20 minutes now. This is Lock Harbor North. This is one of the teams that somebody runs. This is Lock Harbor South. Again, they weren't run very well. what, 10 years ago when this used to be running. And so this is probably the best they've ever been. Magna Carta, they're rated pretty high, although I honestly don't understand how. So we may do some more rankings specifically for this team to figure them out, assuming they do well this season. So, Peace, this is the new team that's coming in 2042, so they're not available to be taken over yet, but they will be next season. So, although it depends what season you're listening to this in, I guess. I'm recording this April of 2019, real time, if it helps. Pearson Griffins, they're another expansion-based team. Again, each of these cities I have with a history. So Pearson Cliffs has 4 neighborhoods. One is Ridgeway, where the Pearson Cliffs franchise is located. One is Cliffstone, where the Cliffstone franchise is located. One is Westview, which is in the east because they have a western view of the rest of the city. Don't ask me. Storyline I decided to create for that, which is where the original Pirates are from. So, not that you probably care about that, but anyways, I decided to talk about it anyways. This is Workers Point Bobcats, now just called Point Bobcats. They're an expansion-based or re-established team, I guess. Port Sharks, again, as you can see, you can click on some of the older links, but as I noted before, this is from Rugby Challenge 2, and so even though their overalls will be the same unless they've aged or retired, well, these guys are retired, assuming they're there, and let's say you just said, oh, I wanted to train these guys, their information on this will be different from what it is in Rugby Challenge 3. I hope that made sense. This is Rocky Edge Tigers. This is what the new page setup is going to be, because eventually I want to have it like I had the soccer sim, where you could just copy all the information, stick it in a spreadsheet, and that spreadsheet, because it'll have macros in it, will be able to tell you how much each player is worth, what their depreciation value will be, when they'll be worth 0, that sort of thing. And then that way, that'll help you run your company, because the whole point in this is setting it up so you are running a company. You're not necessarily running a team, although winning is fun. What's the point? And one of the things we really like about this is this allows you to say, oh, okay, how did I do against Lanita? So they played Lanita in the quarterfinals last season, and they were, well, they didn't do so well against them. Prior to that, they lost 28-14. Prior to that, they lost 37-0, 45-0, 62-0 if you're following along on the screen, so on and so forth. I guess you get the idea. Another team you can take over, Sacredicity. They are set to challenge Lanita, although most of us kind of feel they're still not good enough, but they're out of money, and a lot of their players are old, so if you take them over, you're going to be facing the same situation I did when I took over Union. Probably not as bad, but still. Another bot team that is set up pretty good is Stanislav. Did I just go back? Why did I go back? This is a bot team, Stornoway. And then finally, the last team, which is Union, which is my team. And again, they have a horrible history if you've looked at the other pages I posted on this video. Anyways, that's all I plan on talking about for now. If you have any specific questions, let me know. And hopefully you'll check it out, run a team, and offer suggestions on how to make this simulation better. Because that's what we did when we ran the soccer simulation 10 years ago, and it was a big success. Over 150 people were running teams, and then eventually I got bored of that, but I don't think I'll have that option here because the 2 friends who are running their teams with me are more gung-ho about this than I am. Anyways, thanks for watching. Later.